It has been a tough 7 days for one J.D. Vance. Last week, he went to Hungary to rally support for the re-election of Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who then lost decisively on Sunday, absolutely crushed, super majority for the opposition party for the first time in 16 years. Now Vance is saying, well, yeah, the administration knew that would happen all along.
One of the reasons why we decided to do that, Brett, is not because, we can't read polls. We certainly knew there was a very good chance that Viktor would lose that election. We didn't go because we expected Viktor to cruise to an election victory. We went because it was the right thing to do, to stand behind a person who had stood by us.
Right, yes, a person who had tried to transform his country into essentially a one-party dictatorship, and which you want to do too. From Hungary, Vance was then dispatched, of course, to Pakistan to negotiate an end to the war with Iran that Donald Trump started. On his way there, he reminded everyone, this guy has no credibility and zero experience in this field.
He said, we refuse to give up the right to enrichment. And I thought to myself, you know what? My wife has the right to skydive. But she doesn't jump out of an airplane because she and I have an agreement that she's not going to do that because I don't want my wife jumping out of an airplane.
Okay, because preventing your wife from skydiving is the same as preventing Iran from developing nuclear weapons. Also, is that a source of continued negotiation and tension in your household? Anyway, off he went to negotiate while his boss and the country's top diplomat, the guy that runs the State Department, attended a UFC fight. But once again, Vance failed to accomplish his mission.
We have been at it now for 21 hours, and we've had a number of substantive discussions with the Iranians. That's the good news. The bad news is that we have not reached an agreement.
Oh, wow. Well, who could have predicted? After that string of failures, his next big move was to pick a fight with the Pope.
But I certainly think that in some cases, it would be best for the Vatican to stick to matters of morality, to stick to matters of what's going on in the Catholic Church, and let the President of the United States stick to dictating American public policy.
John Lovett is a host of Crooked Media's Love It or Leave It and co-host of Pod Save America, and he joins me now. John, I feel like there's always the threat for a vice president to become a Veep-like figure. It could be it could be a very dangerous and precarious political position because you are the number two, because you don't actually get to control your own destiny in some ways. It's you can't break with the president. And I feel like he's had a real Veep-like week this last week.
He's discovering what others have discovered in the past, which is you get into business with Donald Trump, you think you're in on the scam, but you're actually the mark the whole time. J.D. Vance said he was so smart. You're right. Other vice presidents have, I think, become Veep-like figures, but they didn't think that the president was a fraud. I don't know what Dick Cheney really thought of George W. Bush, but he certainly didn't think of him what J.D. Vance actually thought of Donald Trump. Now, I think J.D. Vance can convince himself of anything, but, he is now owning his choice to associate himself with Donald Trump, a person whose character he knows well. And this is the consequence.
What did you think? I have to say, I thought I was on vacation, but things were penetrating the sort of vacation bubble. I was selectively letting them through. And I just thought that split screen of Vance is going to go negotiate with the Iranians, and come out and be like, we don't have a deal, while Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, who's the person that everyone thinks is the sort of nearest competitor, right, for the mantle, are together in a UFC fight. That felt cold to me on the part of Trump.
Yeah, look, I just think as a rule, if you're looking for flights between Budapest and Islamabad without stopping at home first, maybe things have not gone exactly as you would have hoped. He went to Hungary, which was just about the friends he made along the way. Then he goes to Islamabad. By the way, I'm happy to have J.D. Vance tarred with Donald Trump's failure, but it's only in the addled goldfish brain of Donald Trump that you can reach a stalemate in 15 minutes of negotiation over an incredibly complex situation. Negotiating the Obama deal with Iran took over a year, I believe. But of course, it would. And now you've added in the complication of we declared war on the country over their nuclear program, which we'd already had claimed was obliterated. So, yeah, he didn't get it done in a day. That's stupid.
Yes, when he came out and said, we've been at it for 21 hours, like, again, and this was another moment where he has been so effective in his life of essentially cultivating mentors that sort of put him in positions of power and prestige and proximity, that you forget that, like, it's a real thin resume this guy has. I mean, that is no small thing to be the lead negotiator in what are the highest stakes international negotiations in since probably the Iran deal under Barack Obama. He was like a U.S. senator for half a second, and then he has his job. There's no reason to think he could do it.
Well, he's got such a great team around him, too, of course. You have Steve Witkoff there. You have Jared Kushner, who's
the son-in-law
not even part of the government.
Yeah, just a guy. Yeah,
just there, I guess, to offer, to spitball, I suppose. Yeah, it's remember the Colin Powell called it the Pottery Barn rule, which is you broke it, you bought it. Actually, I don't think that is a rule at Pottery Barn. I think they're more they have more generous return policy, actually. But this is sort of the like Taj Mahal rule, which is Donald Trump broke it, and it is going to be your problem, JD Vance, because he broke it, you bought it. And, isn't it quaint to think about his efforts in the early days of this conflict, leaking that he wasn't actually for it, as if there was some hope that he wouldn't own it. He got yelled at today from the audience at TPUSA, I believe, because he is going to be associated with this and responsible for this. A person who campaigned telling us that Kamala would be the one to take us to war in the Middle East, and Donald Trump is the person who would focus on America first. And now they have to go around trying to defend high gas prices. The best they can do is say briefly during COVID they were a little bit higher, which I don't think gets them very far. So, yeah, he's in a real bind. He thought he was a con man, and you can't con an honest man.
Yeah, we just showed the shot. They had a Turning Point USA event in Georgia today, the University of Georgia, and clearly booked an enormous venue, which is overwhelmingly empty. Here's that exchange he had with a heckler when he again was kind of like going right back at the Pope, that the Pope's theology on war and peace is wrong, and then he gets interrupted. Take a listen.
Was God on the side of the Americans who liberated Holocaust camps and liberated those innocent people from, those who had survived the Holocaust? I certainly think the answer is yes, and I agree. Jesus Christ does not. I agree. Jesus Christ certainly does not support genocide. Whoever yelled that out from the dark, he certainly does not. I think that's pretty easy. I think that's a pretty easy principle. Okay, so.
Why are you threatening genocide in Iran? And you're right. Whatever he leaked to the press is that the distance on this is that's not going to get the job done.
Also, a guy that just went to Hungary to tell them how to run their country, telling an American from Chicago to focus on morality as opposed to war and peace and immigration. And look, I think he wants the Pope to just be talking about like the rhythm method, like basically just limited to the hits. He wants the Pope on the hits. He's a guy from Chicago. Have you ever tried to get a guy from Chicago to stop talking about something he's interested in? It's not possible. He's a middle-aged Chicagoan. He's going to talk to you about Trump.
And I gotta say, it is a remarkable moment to have the first American Pope at this time with Donald. Like the Pope and Donald Trump as probably the two most famous Americans in the world. It is, and watching this moment play out is remarkable. John Lovett, always great to have you come by.
Good to see you.